Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during the show. The certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tambella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. And today's trivia theme is the NFL, since we are starting the NFL. Actually, we started last week. And we don't have a guest today, and my co-hosts are out of commission. So today's going to be a solo show, and we're going to have some fun because I've got some really funny Bob Uecker sayings. You know, he's sort of like Yogi Berra. He keeps coming up with all these funny sayings. And I also want to share a couple of kind of interesting things. I can't swear to this, but I signed up for it, and you may want to check this out. All right, we're going to start right into it. So I heard about a company called Vintage Winery Estates, VWE. They're traded on the NASDAQ. And what I was told was this company, again, I'm not vouching for it. I'm just saying that I heard about it. I looked at it. I ended up buying shares in it. And I haven't tested it out yet. So I'm putting that caveat. And eventually we'll get someone on the show who comes from the Vintage Winery Estates company to verify everything. But I decided to take a flyer myself, and we'll see how it works. So here's the deal. You know how a lot of wineries charge for wine tasting? And it might be $25 a person, $45 a person, whatever. So I heard about this from a colleague, and Vintage Winery Estates is kind of a consortium of not just one winery, but maybe 7 or 8 wineries. And I believe they're all in the Bay Area, including up to Calistoga, where they belong to this group. And the idea is if you buy shares of stock, if you're a shareholder in the company, then you get the benefits of being a quote member. And if you buy 500 shares, you would get the benefit of a membership for 2 guests, basically you and a guest. If you buy 1,000 shares, then it's good for 4 people. Not only does it give you discounts on the various wines that you can buy from the various wineries, but you can actually take advantage of free wine tasting. So the first thing I found out was that this gentleman who referred me, he said, yeah, this is the best deal in town now. He says, when I bought it, the shares of stock were $10. So I ended up paying $10,000 for this membership, thinking that this was a good deal. And it may have been a good deal at $10,000, I don't know. And I said, yeah, but why is it such a good deal now? And he says, well, the stock is selling below $1. I said, really? And I said, but does everyone get the same benefit as you, the fact that you bought it for $10? Or if someone paid, $100, they would have cost them, $100,000. And he said, yeah. And so I said, wow, that's interesting. So I decided, you know what, I'll just take a flyer on this. So I went ahead and I purchased for myself 1,000 shares, and I paid 77, I think it was around 77 cents. So now I'm into this for $770, but I get the same benefits as anybody else. So the way I looked at this, I thought, well, if I just have 4 of us go to, 6 different wineries in the next year or 2, as long as the company's still around and the consortium is still in existence, then I would have gotten the full benefit for my $770, even if the stock went to 0. So that's kind of why I did it. And I'm not a big wine person, but for a good foodie, type of fun outing for friends, I thought it would be a good idea. You buy this wine club, basically membership, and then go ahead and use it. So I don't know what the shares are selling for now, but it's VWE, Vintage Winery Estates. Again, I'm not suggesting anybody specifically buy them. I have not tested it out yet. I did call and verify that, yes, my shares of stock do qualify. So it just might be something at least to talk. Let's put it this way, talk to your financial advisor and see if this is a good thing for you to do. All right. We're going to cut to our first commercial break here. We're talking the NFL. I thought that was kind of a fun way to start things off. Okay, here's our first trivia question. What longtime NFL player and coach, he was mostly known as a coach and NFC team owner, and actually he was, now that I think about it, he was more known as an owner, also served as the NFC's president, right? That's our trivia question. The football is our theme today. What longtime NFL player and coach and NFC team owner also served as the NFC's president? All right, stay with us. You are listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. Again, call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate at Tan Bella Tanning Salon, which, by the way, again, is worth over $100. Stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host. I'm doing solo today. So here's our first trivia question. What longtime NFL player and coach and NFC team owner also served as the NFC's president? Now you have to go back in time for this one. The answer is George Halas. Remember, he owned the Chicago Bears. All right, want to make an mention here for the SF Bay Adventures, cruising out on the bay. They have a schooner where you get to go all around the bay. You got to check them out. It's pretty cool. sfbayadventures.com. All right. So now before we get into any business stuff, we're gonna have some fun, and we're going to talk about some Bob Uecker quotes. And for those of you who don't remember Bob Uecker, he was a baseball player for the Milwaukee Braves, and then I think he might have been with the Brewers when they. Well, I can't remember, but I know for sure he was with the Milwaukee Braves, and he was a catcher, and he was a mediocre catcher, but he was very quick-witted, and he ended up being an announcer, and I think he may still be an announcer for the Milwaukee Brewers. So here's some of his quotes. They're just absolutely funny. It says here, "I signed with the Milwaukee Braves for $3,000. That bothered my dad at the time because he didn't have that kind of dough, but he eventually scraped it up." And here's another one. "When I came up to bat with the bases loaded and 2 outs in the ninth, I looked at the other team's dugout and they were already in their street clothes." Again, he was not known for being a good hitter. It says here, "I knew my career was over. In 1965, my baseball came out with no picture on it. In 1962, I was named Minor League Player of the Year. It was my second season in the bigs." He's got some advice because he was a catcher. "The way to catch a knuckleball is to wait until it stops rolling and then pick it up." He says here, "My 2 career highlights. I got an intentional walk from Sandy Koufax, and I got out of a rundown against the Mets." Those were his 2 big career highlights. He says, "The biggest thrill a ball player can have is when your son takes after you. That happened when my son Bobby was in his championship Little League game. He really showed something. Struck out 3 times and made an error that lost the game. Parents were throwing things at our car and swearing at us as we drove off. Gosh, I was proud of him." And he says here also, "I hit a grand slam off Ron Herbel, and when his manager came out to get him, he was carrying Herbel's suitcase." Again, just as a reminder, Bob Uecker was not known for his hitting, so that was kind of embarrassing for the pitcher. "My kids used to do things to aggravate me too. I'd take them to a game and they'd come to watch, and they'd come, well, let me try this again. Okay, my kids used to do things to aggravate me too. I'd take them to a game and they'd want to come home with a different player. And I had a great shoe contract and a glove contract with a company who paid me a lot of money, never to be seen using their stuff." Also says here, "My top salary was in 1966. I made $17,000 and 11 of that came from selling other players' equipment." And the last one here, "One time I hit a home run off of Sandy Koufax and apologized to him because I thought that the home run would keep him out of the Hall of Fame." For those baseball aficionados, you'll know Sandy Koufax was a Hall of Fame pitcher. So anyway, I thought those were kind of fun Bob Uecker quotes. All right, let's talk a little business here. So I help run the Pacific Southwest Note Fund, which is a fund under the category, the family, let's put it that way, the family of funds of Pacific Private Money located in Novato. And we're actually, as a company, Pacific Private Money is fairly large now. We've got 50, I think 50 associates, either employees or associates. We've done well over $1 billion in loans in the last so many years. And we have this special fund called the Southwest Note Fund. And that fund buys discounted mortgages. So far, we only have purchased first mortgages, and we'll probably continue only to do that. The best part of this fund is the fact that it pays 8.5% to the clients, and it's extremely conservative in that the loan to value is around 50%, but we're buying the loans at discount. So we're in the like 38% loan to value. So as an example, a house, let's say, is worth $100,000. The loan that the borrower owes is around $50,000, but we only paid $38,000 for that loan. So there's a lot of equity left in the property, which is typically why all of our borrowers pay. I don't say all. I mean, sometimes people run into problems and then we try to work it out with them. If not, we have to foreclose, and then we'll make more money. But we've never missed a payment. No clients lost money. One of the other extremely good things about this fund is the fact that there's no lockup period. Even though the documents say there's 1 year hold time, we do not charge an early withdrawal penalty. We'd ask for at least 30 days notice for that withdrawal. So you've got a fund that's fairly liquid, pays a high rate of return, 8.5%. We pay it on a monthly basis. It's conservative. So one of the qualifications, though, is the fact that you do have to be an accredited investor. And the definition of being an accredited investor means that you have a net worth exclusive of your home of at least $1 million, or you make $200,000 a year if you're single, $300,000 a year if you're married. And if you're interested in that fund, you can give us a call at 415-883-2150. You can ask for me. It'll either go into my voicemail or I'll get the message and I can call you back. 415-883-2150. All right, we're going to go to our second trivia question. We're talking the NFL here. Which NFC team has been around the longest? Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Again, which NFC team has been around the longest? All right, stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing with Edward Brown. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. Again, I'm Edward Brown doing solo today. Our second trivia question, talking the NFL. Which NFC team has been around the longest? And the answer is the New York Giants. All right, that was our trivia question. Okay, now we're going to move on over to one of our other funds, the Pacific Freedom Fund. This is I guess it's our largest fund now. It's got around 62 million in it. And primarily we provide bridge loans. That's our main focus in that fund, which to explain to the audience what a bridge loan is, imagine you own a house, but you want to move and you want to buy a different house. So ordinarily you would sell your house and then move into the new house. But that's got some challenges. One, you may be competing against other buyers and you want to put in an offer quickly. Doing contingent offers on your existing house, that just doesn't fly nowadays. So how do you go ahead and extract the equity from your current home to buy the new home? That's really, really difficult. So what we end up doing is if you've got enough equity in your current home, what we can do is make you a loan on the new house, and will be a first mortgage on the new house, and will be either a first or second mortgage, depending upon if you have any debt on your existing home. And it will give you a loan for 11 months. It's not cheap. I'll warn you ahead of time. It is not a cheap loan. However, it gets you to your objective of buying your next house without first having to sell your existing home. One of the problems with having to sell your first home to get into the next home is you've got moving costs. You got basically got to move twice, stay in a temporary hotel or a rental, move a bunch of furniture, put them in storage. And then when you buy the new home, then move it all again. It's quite a hassle, and it's not cheap. That's not cheap. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to currently live in your home, buy your next home, move everything into that new home? Now you're ready to sell your old home. You can stage it. You can take your time, you not have to fire sale your house. And again, staging is kind of an important feature nowadays in getting houses sold. So let's go through an example. And in some cases, we can lend you up to 100% of the purchase price, which effectively means you wouldn't have to come up with hardly any money, right? So here's the example. Let's say that you own a house that's worth $1 million, and we'll make it simple. You owe $200,000 on it, so you've got $800,000 of equity. Let's say that you want to buy another house for $1 million. Well, what we could do is lend you, and let's say you've got $300,000 down. You have $300,000. So what we could do is, in that case, we could probably just lend you the $700,000 to buy your next house. But let's say you don't even have that. Let's say you don't have any money. What we could potentially do is lend you the $1 million to buy the next house, and we'll be a first mortgage on that house, and we'll cross collateralize on your old house, the one you're currently living in, where we would be a second mortgage because you already have a first mortgage of $200,000. The reason that we're willing to do that is because we are well collateralized, because we have two houses where there's only $200,000 of existing debt. So it's a fairly conservative loan for us. We'll charge you interest, we'll charge you points, but you've got 11 months to pay us back, and there's no prepayment penalty. So you can pay us off at any time. And we've actually had situations where people paid us off in a week, and it's only because the bank didn't work fast enough. They were trying to get a loan from the bank. Bank said, sure, we're going to lend you the money. But when they needed to get closed on a certain date, the bank couldn't come through. So we can work much faster than a typical bank. And that's one of the reasons. There's a few reasons why people come to Pacific Private Money. One is for speed. There's no bank that can work as fast as we can, because we can work with, let's say we can work with an existing appraisal that you have, or we'll do what they call a broker price opinion, so that we don't have to go through a very long process of a brand new appraisal, because banks have certain rules where they cannot use another appraisal done by a different appraiser. They have to hire their own. That's part of the banking regulations. With us, though, we're using private capital, so we're not subject to those same rules. So we can go ahead and use the existing appraisal that you may have, and we'll review it to make sure that it looks good. But again, the best part is, so speed. We keep the costs down because you don't have to hire a new appraiser in that example. And then we go ahead and help you move into your new home. You can maybe get a really good price reduction on it, or make an aggressive offer because you're able to quickly close on that house that you want to buy. So for more information on that, it's called our Pacific Freedom Fund, where you can borrow. What you do is you go to Pacific Private Money and you take out a loan, and we'll use our Freedom Fund to fund it. And at the next segment, I'll explain how you can invest in the Freedom Fund, conservative fund, where you can get a good rate of return. And you call 415-883-2150. All right, our second trivia question, actually our third trivia question. In what city did the Carolina Panthers play their inaugural season in 1996? So for those football fans out there, the Carolina Panthers came in 1996 to the NFL. But here's the question. In what city did they play their inaugural season in 1996? Where do they play? What stadium? Or actually, what city? Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Stay with us. The Best of Investing. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, doing solo today. Our third trivia question on the NFL. In what city did the Carolina Panthers play their inaugural season in 1996? What city did they originally play in? And the answer is Clemson, South Carolina. I think now they play in North Carolina, but originally they played in Clemson, South Carolina. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So we were talking about our Freedom Fund and why it's so good to use it for bridge loans. But now let's say you're an investor and you say, well, that sounds like a pretty conservative way to invest. If you're going to invest in a fund that, let's say, is going to lend $1 million to somebody who wants to buy $1 million house, but they're also putting up another property that's worth $1 million and they only owe $200,000 against it. So what do you do? Well, Pacific Private Money started this fund called the Freedom Fund. Same qualifications as the Southwest Fund from the standpoint of you have to be an accredited investor, again, meaning that you have to have a net worth exclusive of your home of at least $1 million, or you have to make income $200,000 if you're single, $300,000 if you're married. By the way, I forgot to mention the Southwest Fund minimum investment is $50,000. On the Freedom Fund, the minimum investment is $250,000. We can kind of get a little bit adjusting if we need to on that. Like, let's say someone says, listen, I've got $150,000 now, and I'm expecting to get another $150,000 in the next 9 months. Would you let me in? Probably is the answer. So what do we pay on that? Well, at the $250,000 level, we pay, or in this case, if we let you in at 150, you would start there. We pay 7%. If you put in 500,000, we would pay you 8%. And if you put in $1 million or more, which, by the way, we've got a few people who have over $1 million, they earn 9%. So, and the same parameters as the Southwest Fund from the standpoint that although it's a 1-year lockup, we don't impose an early withdrawal penalty. So we do ask for at least a 30-day notice. Sometimes that can get stretched out to 60 and possibly 90 days, but we've been usually pretty good about redeeming people in a timely fashion. But anyway, what would happen is you would put your money in and you'd start getting your 7, 8, or 9% paid on a monthly basis. And then when you want your money back, you ask for a redemption request, and that would start the clock ticking. And then after more than 30 days, you'd end up getting your principal back. We don't have it's not a very sophisticated situation or complicated. Let's put it this way: it's not a very complicated situation because again, it's like a savings. It's like a savings account. It's not FDIC insured, but it is backed by the real estate loans that we do. So very similar to a mutual fund where you invest in the mutual fund. And what does the fund do? If it's a stock fund, it buys stocks. Well, you don't have your name on IBM or Facebook or whatever stock that they're investing in. You have a number of shares of the mutual fund that owns the stock. So it's the same situation here. Excuse me. The Pacific Freedom Fund funds a loan. They recorded it as a deed of trust, very similar to Wells Fargo or Chase or any of the banks that when they make a home loan, they record it against the property, and it's a lien. And the only thing that comes in front of it, if we're a first mortgage, the only thing that comes in front of us is real estate taxes. And also you have to make sure that the insurance gets paid. But other than that, that's how it's secured. So it's not FDIC insured, but it is secured by the real estate, just like a bank, a regular bank does. Is when they make a loan, they secure it with the house. No different. In our case, even though it's fairly liquid, that we like to say, fairly liquid, you can't write checks on it. So it's not a money market account with check writing privileges. But at least you don't have to tie your money up for 5 years or 10 years, or, there's some other funds out there where, they put a fairly long fuse before you can get your money back out. We're not like that, because a lot of times people use us for temporary investments because they are looking for their next deal, their next real estate deal, their next stock purchase, or whatever else they want to do with their money. So they park it with us. And it's a great parking place because I don't know, in today's market where you can get 7, 8, or 9%, with keeping the principal intact. Because again, you don't have to we're not traded like the stock market. So you don't have to look every day in the paper and see, did I make money or did I lose money? It's a lot more, it's a lot simpler than that. Okay. So anyway, for more information on that, it's 415-883-2150. One other fund we started fairly recently is called the Opportunity Fund. That fund primarily makes construction loans. Sometimes there'll be ground up construction. Sometimes there might be a property that has not been completed yet, and we're going to help do the completion. The target rate of return is 8% with some profits that may push the yield up to 10%. Again, past performance is no guarantee of future. And you have to decide whether or not you want to be in that kind of a fund that does more in the construction loan side. There sure does seem to be a need for that primarily in California, but we do go in other states as well. And our Freedom Fund, I'm kind of bouncing around here back and forth, but our Freedom Fund primarily stays in California, but we have expanded outside of California. Our Southwest Note Fund, back to that one again, that's the one that we buy discounted notes. I don't think we have any in California. They're a lot harder to find in California. So we have a lot in Texas, and some in other states like North Carolina and New York and other states. And by the way, if you're out of state, check with your CPA, but you may not have to pay California taxes if you are out of California and you invest in our Southwest Fund. And by the way, all of our funds qualify for QBID, QBID, which stands for Qualified Business Income Deduction. We're not giving any tax advice here, but please talk to your CPA. What is QBID? Well, if you qualify, and it's based on a few factors, mostly if your income is not too high, then distributions that we pay you, the income that gets paid out, you only have to pay taxes on 80% of that, not 100%. So you get a 20% tax break. So if we paid you out $10,000, if you qualified, you only have to pay taxes on $8,000. So that'll push your yield up, an extra certain percentage, which is really nice because it's after-tax money from that standpoint. All right. We are going to cut to our next commercial break. We've already asked our trivia questions. We have some funny thoughts for the day here, so you're going to want to stay tuned, and then we'll close this show out. Again, for more information on investing with Pacific Private Money, you can go to their website, which is pacificprivatemoney.com, or call 415-883-2150. Stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, and boy, I had to do a lot of talking because no co-host today and no guest. I had a guest all lined up, and at the last minute he said, "Oh, I gotta cancel." So he's gonna come on probably sometime next year because the calendar is getting quite full between now and the end of the year with various guests. And by the way, if you want to be a guest on our show, you can. Let's see, how's the best way to do that? Probably just email edward@bestofinvesting.com and say that you'd like to be a guest, and we'll see if we can fit you in, talk about some kind of business. Let us know, how the audience could benefit from hearing what you have to say. All right, so just to recap, the Pacific Southwest Note Fund buys discounted mortgages, currently paying 8.5%, very, very conservative loan to value. The Freedom Fund pays 7, 8, or 9%, depending upon how much you invest. All these are paid on a monthly basis. That one does have a minimum of $250,000. And the other fund that we briefly mentioned is the Opportunity Fund. By the way, that one pays quarterly, and it has a minimum of 100,000. The preferred yield is 8% with a target yield of 10%. That mostly makes construction loans. And back to the Freedom Fund, they mostly make bridge loans to borrowers who are trying to buy their next house. That's the primary focus. As a company, Pacific Private Money to date has not lost anybody's principal. So that's kind of a nice little feather in their cap. They've done, I think it's a total of $1.3 billion in loans. And they manage over $350 million worth of clients' money. So that's kind of a nice little feather again in their cap. Company's been around since 2008. So even though, excuse me, the Great Recession happened, the properties were still going down in value in 2008, 9, 10, and 11. They were still making loans, but they never lost anybody's money because of the conservative underwriting, where, let's say a property is worth 100,000 and they lent 60,000 and then the property dropped down to 80,000. Well, the borrower still paid back the 60,000. So there was no loss to any investors. So again, for more information, pacificprivatemoney.com or 415-883-2150. Okay, we're going to go to our thoughts for the day. So I visited a mental hospital and I asked the director what the criteria are for defining whether or not a patient should be institutionalized. And the doctor said, well, we fill up a bathtub, then we offer a teaspoon, a teacup, and a bucket to the patient who asks, to the patient, and we ask him to empty the bathtub. Oh, I said, I understand. A normal person would use the bucket as it's bigger than as it is bigger than the spoon or the teacup. The doctor said, no, a normal person would pull the drain plug. So do you want a bed by the wall or near the window? I quickly had to run out of there. Yes. All right, audience, tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.